We're looking at these images coming from our colleagues at Portuguese television of Pope Francis's motorcade now leaving the confessional park, and we believe he is on the way to his next appointment, which we'll carry live here on EWTN, which is his meeting with charity workers, those who are working with the needy, the most vulnerable and the most fragile here in the nation of Portugal. It's been interesting actually, as we've been here for a few days, we did note, the team, as we've went around, that you do not see many homeless on the street, you know, if you compare it to other parts of the world, even in the United States, cities like Philadelphia and Los Angeles that are grappling with a huge homelessness and mental health crisis at the moment. So that's one thing we've noticed here in Portugal.
And someone was telling us at breakfast too, and I don't know the details of the policy, but they had a real drug problem here that's greatly diminished now. I don't, you know, obviously you're never going to wipe it out, but so that's a sign of hope.
And just some facts about the beautiful city you're looking at there. This is Lisbon. It's one of the oldest cities in Europe with a rich history of Christianity going centuries back. It's a population of around 500,000 people, so normally only 500,000 people live in this city, so that's quite a small, compact city, and now it's been swelled to a number they're estimating to be around 1.1 million, an influx of an extra 1.1 million people by the end of the week, so that's an incredible mass of people coming in. So there has been so much work done behind the scenes, of course, with logistics and getting toilets in, accommodation. Like, you've been to 8 World Youth Days. Young people just normally sleep school halls, people's homes, sometimes out on the grass and parks if the weather is good.
Yeah, when I went as a participant in Toronto, and we stayed in church gymnasiums and we stayed in people's homes. So, yeah, I know. Yeah, just wherever. But a lot stay in hotels too. So it's a mixture.
Eleonora, when you were in Poland, wasn't it, for your first World Youth Day?
Yeah, exactly, in Krakow.
Were you staying in a 5-star hotel or were you staying in a gymnasium hall?
Not exactly a 5-star hotel, but we stay in a university building. Yeah, so nice.
And
nice
what was
experience.
Was it a nice experience with that kind of, we're all in this together? You know, we're all kind of roughing it a small bit. That community feeling, you're with them in the morning for Mass, you're with them in the afternoon as they're chanting in the streets, and then you're all together trying to get some shut-eye as well.
There is a camaraderie with the communal suffering, you know?
Yeah.
I remember in Toronto, one of the older chaperones slept in the van with the car running, the air conditioned overnight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you do what you have to do to get by.
Now, actually, speaking of the pilgrims, we've been mentioning that they've come from all over the world, and people have been greatly surprised by the numbers, because many skeptics were saying, would they come, as they've said in previous years? Will young people still come to World Youth Day today? Is it relevant, and so on? And like you saw last night, 500,000 young people packed into the square here at Eduardo Park. And just to give you some breakdown of numbers, they reckon around 80,000 have come from neighbouring Spain, and then around 50,000 have come down from France. And yesterday, I met one of those 50,000. Her name was Charlotte, and we had a quick chat. Here it is.
My name is Charlotte, and we're from France.
You don't sound French, Charlotte.
Well, I am French, but I lived the first 9 years of my life in London.
In London, okay. Yeah. Viva France, everybody.
Yeah. Viva France!
So this is amazing. I heard that there are, what, 40,000 people coming from France?
We're actually a little bit more, closer to like 45, 46, even maybe 47,000, because a few people are coming with religious communities.
Has that surprised people that so many young people have mobilized and left France to come here?
Well, it's not really surprising, because even though we're not really showing, there's still quite a lot of Catholic youth in France.
Isn't that great to see?
Yes, it's so cool.
So what has it been like so far? I know we're just a few days into World Youth Day, but what has the experience been like for you?
It's been so great. We've met loads of really cool people. Like, just before we were the Swedish delegation, and before that we met some Australian people. It's like so great, and there are loads of meetings we can do, and musicals and everything. It's really great. And there was also the Mass yesterday. For me, I think it would be sharing our faith, because it's kind of hard to share your personal faith when like you're all alone, and it's something that the church says often. Like a Christian a Christian alone is a Christian in danger, because we need each other to support ourselves and to be able to share what we're living, because it's such a great thing. So that's something that I came here for, like to try and learn how to share my faith.
Wow. I just remind you, she is 16 years of age. How articulate is that 16-year-old Charlotte from France? And she was with a group, and just groups like that sitting all around, young people talking to us and just sharing their experiences of why they're here. And many people volunteering, because you have to remember, when people come to World Youth Day, there are different kind of groups that come. There are those who come leading pilgrims. There are the pilgrims themselves, who are the vast majority. Then there are people who come specifically to volunteer, to kind of give of their time and to service others. And that could be working in security, helping at the media centre, helping show people around, helping those who are in need of accommodation at the last minute.
Just guiding people, traffic control. Yeah.
Traffic control
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And they're defined by the yellow T-shirt. So everywhere you go in Lisbon, you see the pilgrims in an array of colours, and then you see those who are wearing solid yellow T-shirts with volunteer on their back. And Eleonora, I know that when you were at World Youth Day in Poland, you went not as a pilgrim, but you went as a volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. In 2016, it was an amazing experience, because my university in Rome created a team, and we departed to Poland. And yeah, I was a volunteer, and it was a really honor for me to help in such a great event like the World Youth Day.
And why did you want to go as a volunteer?
Oh, I worked in the communication department and in media center. So we helped for articles, for the website, for some interviews, and it was so important for also for my career, because I was still a student in 2016.
And was that when you were at Santa Croce?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So we should say Eleonora she's at a premier school in Rome for communications, but moral theology too at Santa Croce.
Yeah, I studied at the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross in the heart of Rome. So.
Well, as we're talking about the volunteers, let's hear from some of them. The other day we went around, and just a few volunteers, we picked them out of the crowd and here in the media center, and we asked them where they're from and what they were doing.
From my part, I'm in the caring houses. Securities.
Info point agent.
Communication and web technologies. I'm a health volunteer.
We are helping on different parishes.
Pilgrimage transport. Boys have one service and the girls other.
Security.
So you're all doing security.
Me too. Me too. The security job is critical job.
It's my job. I will try to do it.
So nobody mess with you.
Oh, no.
So we are from Portugal.
And why are you volunteering at World Youth Day?
Mostly because of the experience of helping people that come from other countries to feel at home, to connect with a little bit more with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, and the environment around it.
I've seen like images from the previous youth days, and I've seen everyone so experiencing the joy so much, and I thought I wanted to be a part of it and help as well.
The first experience for me was in Panama, so I loved the experience. I have innate longing to serve those guys, because I think that the joy would be in giving.
I want to give my time to others and to meet people, and this is the way I'm contributing in the World Youth Day.
As God is calling us to, we are chosen. Like the prior said yesterday, we are chosen. We have been chosen, yes, by God to do it.
And it's my part too, and I was very encouraged by my family and friends and colleagues from Mauritius to come here.
So you had to take time off, you had to come here. It's a big sacrifice.
Yeah, because I have a credit of vacations.
I'm a normal volunteer.
Normal volunteer. What does a normal volunteer do?
Help where is needed. Yeah.
So it could be anything.
Yeah.
Are they good volunteers? Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. Oh, that is beautiful. And just, by the way, I have to mention our colleagues, Patrick Leonard shot that and Anthony Johnston edited a great job on that. And those volunteers, you know, it strikes me, they're from all over the world, of course. They're smart young people. I mean, these aren't guys that are just sitting on their couch with nothing to do saying, okay, I'll go volunteer. Like the guy from Jordan, I remember talking to him for a long time after we finished doing the interview. He's a coder, a computer coder in Jordan who works with JavaScript, very technical, specialized work. But he took time off work. He said he had vacation credits, but rather than going off and staying on a beach somewhere for his vacation, he's using his free time to volunteer here. And someone asked me yesterday, are they getting paid? No, they're volunteering. And it's incredible to see, isn't it?
It is. There's usually like 20 to 30,000 volunteers, and the Pope's going to have a meeting with them on Sunday, and we're covering that. That's always a very powerful, because the volunteers are like really all in on World Youth Day, and it's a rousing thing, you know, to see that. And it's a testimony to service. You know, the importance of service is what we're going to hear about at his next stop here at the Charity Center. But how that's just intrinsic to the Christian life is service, to give of ourselves.
The importance as Christians to do that service, how important is that?
Love God, love neighbor, right? And yeah, it's the fundamental of the 10 Commandments, the two pillars of the 10 Commandments, 10 words. And so we have to do that. If we have love in us, you know, for our faith to be alive, it has to be enlivened with charity, and that's by acts of charity. And what I love about it, and I always say this, like in preaching, it's like it's good news, because there's always something I can do. Our own Martin Luther King, you know, from the United States, a great civil rights leader, said anybody can be great because anybody can serve. And it might be simple service, but we can do it. It doesn't matter how we feel. It doesn't matter if we like this person or not. It doesn't matter. You know, you can take the actions of love, and charity grows in us.
And it's simply not possible for everyone to say, I'm going to take a week off and go across the world for, 7 days to volunteer at an event. But as Pope Francis was saying yesterday when he was talking to the young people in Kayakesh about the story of the Good Samaritan, even that service, one simple thing a day or a week when you see someone who needs a dig out or they need a hand in something, and just being there for them, that's a great act of service.
And in our own personal growth in it, I think too, it's an act of sanity, because it gets us out of our own heads. We could just get trapped up in our own heads, wind up becoming neurotic, anxious, and everything. Sometimes that's the solution. Get up and do something for somebody else if you feel miserable.
And for the elderly, as Pope Francis has been speaking a lot about recently, and he mentioned it with the disposable throwaway culture, he said the discarded elderly who can be forgotten, to go visit that neighbor. You know, we all know someone who is elderly living nearby who probably doesn't get enough visits from their family or friends, to just take that time to pop in and say hello, have a quick cup of tea. Are you all right? Do you need anything?
You know, I had this conversion experience at the end of college, and after I graduated, I started going to like daily mass and things, got plugged into the church in a deeper way. So I would tell young people that, well, how can I serve? That's a starting point. Say, hey, what is your parish doing? What charitable act? And the parish had this group that was going into the nursing homes, and so I joined them. It was a great experience for me.
As the Pope arrives here at the Charity Centre, before we hand over to our commentary team, Eleanor, to finish this little part of the conversation, you were providing service at World Youth Day. What did you get from it? You gave so much. What did it give you?
It was an incredible experience, because I think it's so important for a student that studied communication of the church, also live great events, and also move from the theory to the practice.
Yeah.
No, it's so important. It's so important. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure the sense of fulfillment of helping others and being there when someone was stuck for something, or a press release or a live feed, you were able to help them.
Exactly, and also I met people from all over the world.
Well, now I know we see Pope Francis coming out of his car, his Pope-mobile as they commonly call it, and he's been greeted by people there at the Charity Centre. So let's cross over now to our commentary team there and watch this encounter.
That is sustainability and inclusion. So recycled materials were made, and they gave easy access to people who might otherwise find it difficult to access certain areas. He then drove by car 9 kilometers here to this church, where he will be meeting various charitable organizations in the social center of St. Vincent de Paul Parish, located in the heart of the periphery called Sarafina, near the Bairro Liberdade. Here the center employs about 170 people who are involved with running a kindergarten, a nursery school, leisure activities for children. They also run a retirement home, a day center for the elderly, and for people with disabilities. The parish and our Holy Father here meeting a young boy in a wheelchair, and our Holy Father has given him a rosary, and now they're giving each other a high five. And once again, our Holy Father himself in a wheelchair. The parish that our Holy Father is visiting was established on March 25th, 1959 by the then Cardinal Patriarch of Lisbon and was entrusted to the Consolata missionaries. The parish entrusted to the protection of St. Vincent de Paul with the aim of following his own inspiration, that is, loving God in the poor. There are 3 charitable organizations who are present here. We'll be hearing from the parish priest of Serafina, who is also the director of the social work, the charitable activities that take place in this parish. And here once again we see the President of the Republic. His name is Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. I've seen him at all the events so far. It's rare that a president follows all of the events. It's a beautiful testimony on his part. And we had the opportunity of interviewing him yesterday. You can find that interview on the Vatican News channels. A heartfelt message directly to young people. Of course, Cardinal Parolin, the Cardinal Secretary of State, also in attendance, as well as other members of the papal entourage. the choir up on the stage with the Holy Father dressed in orange shirts, T-shirts with the word caridade, charity. And they're singing a song, a hymn to charity.
Santo Padre, em nome das associações aqui reunidas, nomeadamente o Centro Social Paroquial São Vicente de Paulo.
Holy Father, on behalf of the associations gathered here, the Centro Paroquial da Serafina, the Ayuda Diverso Family House, and the Acreditar Association, we would like to express our deep gratitude for the honor you have shown us with your visit. This gesture fills us with great joy and urges all of us to always do better and more for those who need the support and love of Christ. I am Canon Francisco Crespo, parish priest and director of this parish social center of St. Vincent de Paul. The parish and the social center were born in the same year, 1959, only 2 months apart from each other. The first parish priest, Father Jose Galea, understood from the beginning that in order to evangelize this population, it was necessary to touch the concrete reality of the inhabitants, deprived of the protection of their rights, and also of the essential means for a dignified and just life. I, too, arriving in this parish, was struck by the innumerable manifestations of poverty, above all by the sad and empty gaze of the elderly sitting along the road. Gradually, with the efforts of an always available community, and with the help of a few benefactors and the support of the state, multiple social responses to the needs of the population have developed one after another. Today, the St. Vincent de Paul Parish Social Center is able to serve almost 800 people with more than 170 employees, with quite a varied range of services, such as, just to name a few, the nursery, a youth center, the retire home for the elderly, and support services for needy families. People's lives are improving, but there's still a lot to do. We're trying to make love grow for each person who becomes an evangelical proclamation at the service of a culture of care, valuing the little or the lot that each person can give to feel useful and integrated in the community, applying the expression of Pope St. John the 23rd, the parish is the village fountain where everyone goes to drink. We have St. Vincent de Paul as our patron, the apostle of charity, and the desire to imitate him takes us out of our comfort zones to overcome our selfish and self-centered mentality. The motto of this World Youth Day tells us that Maria arose and went with haste. May this be the hour of grace that encourages us to hurry or to make haste so that we, following Mary's example, can bring joy to everyone. Once again, we want to express our deepest gratitude to Your Holiness for coming among us. May God bless you abundantly in your mission of shepherding and guiding the flock. May our example of humility and service continue to inspire all for a long time to come. Thanks a million. Greetings from the parish Right now we need a lot of support and strength in order to continue.
Muito obrigado, Santo Padre.
And those who work here need a lot of support in order to continue what they have been doing. And we've been hearing from the parish priest here. Now we'll be hearing from a representative of Ajuda de Berço.
Uma casa de acolhimento para crianças abandonadas ou em risco.
It's a shelter for abandoned or at-risk children. Founded 25 years ago in the context of the pro-life movements and the 1998 abortion referendum campaigns, we felt compelled to offer an alternative to men and women who are tempted to abort their children or who were unable to care for them. To date, we have welcomed 452 children who, after having lived with us, have been safely placed with long-term life plans for their lives. For some, it was return to the family, for others, adoption or other forms of shelter. 2 of them accompany us from heaven. Living permanently in our house in Lisbon are 40 children, ranging from a few days old to 13 years old, who are entrusted to us by the Portuguese state. They live with us 365 days, 24 hours a day, served and protected by the collaborators who work in our house. Holy Father, what do we want to witness to you? First of all, our appreciation for your commitment in defense of life. Your magisterium in the footsteps of your beloved predecessors encourages, comforts, and confirms us. Thank you, Holy Father, for being our Father and Shepherd in this area, too. Then our gratitude to the Church of Lisbon, to the priests who have encouraged and accompanied us, to our bishop, whose fatherly presence helps and moves us. Our gratitude then extends to the immense social friendship that has been generated around the Ajuda de Berço. We are supported by believers of various confessions and people of goodwill who do not profess any religion, of different beliefs and origins. All kinds of people and institutions support us, all brothers and sisters, in the care of those little ones entrusted to us. Finally, the greatest gratitude goes to Jesus himself and his Blessed Mother Mary, whose tenderness and protection we experience every day. How many times have we turned to Our Lady, who unties notes? Many times. And now I conclude, we will continue to pray for you. Pray for us too, Holy Father, for these children who have been entrusted to us so that they may find a family. For us who carry on this work and who have the responsibility for it. For all those who work in the Ajuda de Berço to serve these children with a sincere and available or open heart. Pray also for our volunteers and benefactors. Thank you, Holy Father. This was a representative of the Ajuda de Berço Association who works in the pro-life movement, providing shelter for children. And now we'll hear from a representative of the Acreditar Association. Holy Father, we're a group of children and young people with cancer, children and young people who have passed this test or have gone through this trial together with their parents. Together we form the Acreditar Association, which for 30 years have been inviting hope for recovery and trying to alleviate suffering during treatment, both in cases of survival and for the families whose children have not survived. We offer emotional, psychological, material, and academic support and welcome into our homes those who live far away from the hospital. Our mission is to be close to all children and young people, trying to ensure that cancer does not condition their lives, that treatments are effective, and in order to provide better quality of life. We know we are stronger when we join together in the defense of rights. And so we have created connections between survivors, patients, and parents, so that animated by hope, they never feel alone. Thank you, Holy Father, for carrying these children with cancer in your hearts. In your heart. And this representative, I'm sorry, we don't have names for these last two, also then greeting our Holy Father. And at this point in the program, I believe we will now hear our Holy Father's discourse.
Queridos hermanos y hermanas, buen día.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning. I thank the parish priest for his words and greet all of you, especially the friends of the Centro Parroquial da Serafina, of the Ajuda Diverso Family Home, and the Acreditar Association. And I thank you for your words demonstrating the work that each of you do. It's beautiful to be here together during the celebration of this World Youth Day as we reflect on the Virgin Mary who rises in order to help. Indeed, charity is the origin and goal of our Christian journey. And your presence is a concrete reminder of love in action and helps us remember the meaning of what we do and how we are to do it. Thank you for your testimonies. I'd like to emphasize three aspects of your testimonies: doing good together, acting concretely, and being close to the most vulnerable. And he's repeating those three, not just acting with ideas, but acting concretely. First, doing good together. Together is the key word. And I heard you repeat it many times in the words you addressed to us. Living, helping, and loving together. Young and old, the healthy and the sick, all together. Joao told us something very important, that we must not allow ourselves to be defined by our sickness, but instead make it a constructive part of our contribution to the wider community. This is true. We must not let ourselves be defined or conditioned by sickness or difficulties, because none of us is an illness or a problem. Each of us is a gift, a unique gift, with limitations, but a gift, a precious and sacred gift for God and for the Christian and human community. In this way, this is how we enrich each other and how everyone together enriches others just as we are. Second, to act concretely. This too is important. As Father Francisco reminded us, citing the words of St. John the 23rd, the Church is not an archaeological museum. Some people think that it's that way, but it's not. It's the ancient village fountain that provides water for the people of today, as it did for the past. This fountain is meant to quench the thirst of the people living today, those who arrive who bear the weight and fatigue of their journey. Acting concretely, then, paying attention to the here and now, as you already do, with an eye for detail and practical sense These are fine virtues typical of the Portuguese people. There are many things that I could say about this now, and it happens. He says, it gets confusing and I can't read very well. And so I'm going to give you this discourse, and it'll be published afterward in order not to strain my eyes. And now I want to pause on the spirit of concreteness. There is no abstract love. Platonic love is out there in orbit. It's not real. Love is concrete. It's tangible. It requires that we get our hands dirty. And every one of us can ask ourselves, the love that I feel, all of those you who are here, the love that you feel toward others, is it concrete or is it abstract? When I give my hand to another person who needs something, to someone who's sick, someone on the margins, do I take my hand back right away so that I don't get something that they have, so that I don't have to touch something? Or am I in touch with the other person's poverty? Is my life distilled? Do I live a life that exists in my fantasy, but not the life that's real around me? Or am I passing through life without making a mark so that their lives don't burden me? And here we have a reality that leaves a mark. He's speaking about the associations. For many years you've left a mark because you've been interacting with others. I can't insist in a World Youth Day, because you are also, people are young when they generate life around them, and so with this conduct, this behavior that you have, this dedication to getting your hands dirty, because here the misery that other people feel are generating new things and new life, and I thank you very much for this. Keep doing this. Keep moving ahead. And don't get discouraged. If you do get discouraged, drink a glass of water and keep going ahead. And our Holy Father now handing his discourse over. He did not finish his prepared remarks, but instead went ahead off the cuff, saying that he didn't want to strain his eyes. It was difficult for him to read. So our Holy Father now putting his glasses back into the case, and we should have the recitation of the Our Father and a blessing now.
Rezamos o Pai Nosso em português.
It will be prayed in Portuguese.
Só coração e numa só alma ousamos dizer: Pai nosso que estais nos céus, santificado seja o vosso nome. Venha a nós o vosso reino. Seja feita a vossa vontade, assim na terra como no céu. O pão nosso de cada dia nos dai hoje. Perdoai-nos as nossas ofensas, assim como nós perdoamos a quem nos tem ofendido. E não nos deixeis cair em tentação, mas livrai-nos do mal.
And now for the blessing.
O Senhor esteja convosco. Bendito seja o nome do Senhor. O nosso auxílio vem do Senhor. Abençoe-vos, Deus Todo-Poderoso, Pai, Filho, Santo Espírito. Amém.
And our Holy Father has just now imparted his blessing on the people who have been participating in this meeting with him in the parochial center of Serafina in the parish of St. Vincent de Paul, where he met with people representing the people working at that particular parish center, over 170 we heard, as well as people working in the Ajuda de Berço family home and the Acreditar Association. And a hymn being performed by members of the children's choir. Sounded like a hymn to Our Lady. Our Holy Father now being helped into his wheelchair. And he, instead of getting into his wheelchair, has decided to go and greet the little members of the choir. We see children, obviously from various parts of the world, and their shirts say charity and evangelization in Portuguese. So these are the faces of the little ones that had provided us with the music. They're all waving. Our Holy Father is asking them to say something. And so they responded. The parish priest at his side, we heard from him earlier. I believe his name was Canon Francisco. Yes, Canon Francisco Crespo. Oh, and now they're blowing each other kisses. And that certainly doesn't need translation. And here we see the President of the Republic. He has been attending all of the events with the Holy Father. We now see, I believe this may be the director of the the family house, bringing up a child in his arms. Perhaps wanting also to get close to the Holy Father, we'll see. Holy Father now having given rosaries to the members of the choir and once again waving to them. Now he is getting into his wheelchair. Memorable moment for all of these children. For those of us who are watching, we can remember their faces, keep them in our prayers. And now our Holy Father moving over to the other choir that's on the other side, and now their chant. This is a choir, the participants are a little older. And all of them also receiving a rosary. There we go. Our Holy Father waving also to them. And now he'll be greeting the gentleman. Yes, he's the representative of the House for Children. Our Holy Father blessing the baby that's in his arms. This is Pope Francis' second visit to Portugal. His first in 2017 when he went to take part in the centennial anniversaries of the apparitions. We know John Paul II, too, in 1982, went specifically to Fatima in order to thank Our Lady for the gift that he received of the miraculous survival of the assassination attempt on his life. But Paul VI also went to Portugal in 1967. John Paul himself paid 2 other visits to the country, and Benedict went in 2010. So all of Pope Francis's recent predecessors have come to this longtime Catholic country. And we hear the hymn being sung again. Once our Holy Father leaves here, he will drive back to the Apostolic Nunciature. He'll be eating lunch at 12 o'clock noon, local time in Portugal, with 10 young people from various nationalities. And we invite you back at 6 o'clock p.m. local time. Pope Francis will participate in the next World Youth Day event, the customary Way of the Cross, which will take place in Eduardo VII Park. But I also invite you to visit the Vatican News web portal, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter accounts. You'll find coverage of Pope Francis' trip to Portugal, as well as coverage of other Vatican and world news. On behalf of Vatican Media, I'd like to thank our audio technician, Daniele Giorgi, and our coordinator, Thaddeus Jones, and all others who've made
this is EWTN. You are watching our live coverage of World Youth Day. Father, your thoughts after watching that?
Yeah, a little excitement there. He thought he couldn't read the prepared text, so he had to go off the cuff, and the bishops, cardinals clearly enjoyed that. They were laughing quite a bit. Sadly, technically, I couldn't hear a lot of what he was saying there, but we thought we could still comment somewhat on the prepared text. You know, these are his favorite themes.
And as you say, always a little bit of excitement when
always exciting.
things don't go according to plan.
Always chaos. The World Youth Day always has a certain amount of chaos.
So the Holy Father thought the lighting was a bit too low, and so he couldn't read his text. And he said, you know what, I'll speak from the heart, which is pretty nice, wasn't it?
Yes.
But we do have a copy of the remarks he was planning to make.
Right. So I thought maybe we'd make a few points out of that. And let me start with Eleonora. I know you reflected on it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially on the second point, has acting concretely is such an important thing, also for and especially for young people. And yeah, there is, for example, the quote of Saint John 23rd. The church is not an archaeological museum. And this is a very concrete expression, as we said yesterday, for young people is important to speak in this way, because in this way there is an immediate understanding.
Yes, he says it provides water for today's generations, the church does, just as it did for those of the past. St. John the 23rd said that. And so I think, he's saying we apply this charity, this life of God that we've been given, the grace, and apply it to the concrete of what the situations, who are the marginalized, who are on the peripheries, and to try to reach out to them.
And that sense of togetherness, he mentioned again, including everyone. He said young, old, healthy, the sick, and that people shouldn't be defined by illness. We don't look at someone and say, that person is disabled. We say a person with disabilities and all that, but we focus on the ability. Because, Father, we all have our disabilities.
Right.
We're all disabled, if you want to put it that way, in some way or another.
Yeah, I thought that was especially powerful and relevant because we're all children of God. That's our... Did you want to say something about that?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just being told by our producer, Greg, that we now have the images of the Holy Father who is praying in front of the statue of Our Lady of Fatima, where, of course, he will be heading tomorrow for a very special visit. So these pictures, just to remind you, if you're tuning in, are coming to us live from this charity centre in the centre of Lisbon.
Yeah, I think that is such a key issue, not to be defined by illness or problems. And certainly as we minister to people, serve to people, we don't focus on that. You look people in the eye, you treat them with respect, and don't, exaggerate whether their difficulty or problem. And I think to maintain that identity as a child of God, because sometimes we might struggle with whatever behaviors and difficulties, that people want to reduce. Say, this is the way I am, just to accept sin in my life. So no, you're a child of God. You're called to human flourishing. You're called to live the gospel. And yes, it might be a terrible struggle in your life, but you're called for more. Don't accept, especially I'm talking in terms of like the moral realm, that, okay, this is just who I am. I'm going to act this way. This is in my nature. It's like, no, you're called to something higher.
And you look at somewhere like the Elizabeth Seton Children's Hospital in New York City, up in Yonkers in New York, who are caring for the most vulnerable and those who have the most severe disabilities. And these are children who need 24-hour medical care at a huge cost. Started by Elizabeth Seton, continued on. The nuns, a number of the nuns are still on the board of the hospital today. And they just do such incredible work. We filmed there before for EWTN. And you see how the children are treated with dignity and kindness. I know it's a cliche, but when you're there, you feel like the people who care for them see them as their own children.
Right. It's a bit of heaven.
And some of them, when we were filming, they might only be able to, if they're lying in a wheelchair, maybe paralyzed, the children, they might be able to force a tiny smile. And that's maybe all they can do. But still, to see that life still has immense value.
Right.
And should be treated like someone who is an athlete winning the Olympics. That there's no difference between those two people when it comes to just the importance of that life.
And I always think about that when we've heard messages about women being our true protagonists in society and culture. And I think that feminine genius really shines forth in that kind of attention to the individual, the person in concrete situations or realities. Women have a special ability to recognize that dignity of being a child of God, and to go there and serve. You know, and Mother Teresa's sisters, Missionaries of Charity, you know, they witnessed to us of, we always think we have to go in with all this time or whatever money, got to help them in a physical way. They're living in utter poverty in their vows, and they're serving, right? So I think that's an image of, yeah, we might not feel capable to help them, but maybe show up and see what God does. You know, be present.
You're so right. Sometimes the biggest service is just the most valuable commodity you have is your time.
Right.
And sometimes just giving your time and being there, you're giving the most valuable commodity that you can.
Right. Right.
It's easy for a wealthy person to come and maybe slap down a big check, which of course really helps. We need money to make things work and to get good wards and hospitals and machinery.
Yeah.
But it's harder to give of your time.
Yeah, yeah, that's, yeah, we and parents know that, right? Children don't just want some of your time, they want all of your time, right? And people just craving attention, you know, and do we have time for others? And I find God inspires us what to do with them or for them or to listen.
I mean, and that's part of your vocation as well, isn't it? As a priest, that you've to give your time to others and whoever may come knocking on the door day or night with their problems.
Or going to the hospital at night or something, you know.
Now we're watching these images. If you've just joined us, this is World Youth Day, coming to you live from a beautiful sunny Lisbon in Portugal. The Holy Father, his third day here, but this is officially the fourth day of World Youth Day, kicked off a day before Pope Francis arrived. And this morning he has spent some time with young people hearing their confession in a park in the middle of Lisbon. That was a little bit earlier today, where he sat with one or two young people for a brief period of time and then left in his car, and the motorcade made its way to this charity centre where he met people who work with those most fragile, most disadvantaged and those most in need.
And, you know, if we could say something like being here at World Youth Day, I can't remember the direct quote, but I remember John Paul II spoke about the fragility of youth. And I had never really thought of it that way, but they are, you know, they need our help. They need attention. They need to be guided and mentored. And to be aware of that there's a vulnerability to being young. And the older generation has a responsibility of that. You know, I talked to a guy in the street. He's from Chicago. He's just vacationing here in Lisbon. He was an old guy, older gentleman, and he kind of had that rough Chicago demeanor. And he asked me, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, Pope Francis is here. It's World Youth Day." And he said, "Oh yeah." I said, "I heard about him coming." I remember he just said, "It's really beautiful to see all the young people here."
Yeah.
He just simply said it. And you know, young people have this beauty about them. You know, that this vitality, you know, that is just so compelling. It just stirs all of us, awakens everybody up.
And I like that you say, just the way he said it, it's really beautiful to see them all. Sometimes I often say when we're editing videos and we're trying to be very complicated and be clever, I say there's beauty in simplicity. You keep it short, you keep it simple. Like when Pope Francis went to the Catholic University yesterday and he heard from 4 students who talked about their problems, their hopes, their dreams, their desires. The person who spoke last spoke for the least amount of time. And at the very end she said, "Pope Francis, I can't tell you what it means to be speaking to you here today." And I thought that summed up the whole thing. That simple, beautiful, honest line. I thought that's what it's all about.
To be heard, to be listened to.
Yeah. To be heard and be listened to. If you're wondering what the music is behind us, by the way, we are coming to you from Eduardo Park. This is a park in the centre of Lisbon, which has been the focal point for many of the events across World Youth Day, starting with the opening mass on Monday night, then with the welcoming ceremony last night. So at the moment they are rehearsing and sound checking a band up on stage there for what will be a concert here at some point later on this evening or tomorrow. And of course this evening we have the beautiful Way of the Cross, which will take place here live from Eduardo Park, and we'll have it on EWTN. And if you want to find out more about what we are doing and what times they're at, you can go to our website. It's ewtn.com/WYD. That's ewtn.com/WYD. So we've seen since the Pope has landed, meeting with the President, meeting with the Prime Minister, meeting with fellow religious, encouraging them not to get discouraged, meeting the young people this morning, hearing their confession, and now meeting those who work with the most vulnerable again, encouraging them. Is that, I know he went off script, but the main aim of the Pope meeting with those who work with those with special needs and those who are on the streets and all that, it's just to tell them, we're supporting you. I'm here as a sign of support. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Right. I remember one of the brothers gave me that advice. I was newly ordained. I said, what would you tell about, what advice would you give in confession? And he told me, I thought it was very wise. He said, just try to encourage them. You know, I think that's what the Pope's doing. He's visiting all these places and just trying to encourage people, you know, to say, keep on doing what you're doing. And when you get some recognition, that kind of always gives us a new impetus, a new energy.
And Eleonora, you know, working with young people in Italy, we see young people are always marching, they're on the streets. Young people always get behind movements. We've seen that throughout history. But with Pope Francis, with his constant call to action, are people more mobilized, do you think, because of Pope Francis? Do they want to help out in the world more?
Pope Francis always give such a call to action. For example, also in this prepared speech of this morning, there's a very good quote. For example, each of us is a gift, a unique gift, and it's also a very important message for all young people.
And especially yesterday when I met people on the street, they were saying, of course, when I said, what's on your heart, what are you carrying here? They were talking about, a few of them mentioned the environment, which of course is something that Pope Francis is, you think of his first encyclical, is always speaking out about our responsibility as Christians to care for creation. And in his first speech here in Lisbon, he likened the vast oceans and the birthplace of life and all the vastness of life there to the paradox, he said, of people throwing away life in the world today, whether it's with the unborn or with the elderly. And today, again, as you said, reminding people of the precious gift that everyone is. It's a theme throughout his entire visit.
Right. And, you say, be close to those most vulnerable. That in the world, I liken it sometimes to like airport culture. You know, you get to these big airports, you got to get to the gate. You got to walk fast. You got to grab something to eat. You know, you got to be able to perform, right, to get through the airport. Yeah. And our culture could be like that. You know, if you're fine, healthy, young, strong, you can get through it. But what about the most vulnerable? They might need help. Like I met a pilgrim yesterday she was using crutches and she had some disability. And I said, how are you doing with all that? And she said, people are helping me. It hasn't been bad.
Wonderful.
So he's trying to call our attention to that. Who around you is most vulnerable? Who needs a little bit of time, a little bit extra attention?
Well, as we've been sitting here in our studio at Eduardo Park in front of the stage where you can hear the band behind us, last night we had the welcoming ceremony here. It was incredible with 500,000 young people packed into the park, a sea of flags as far as the eye could see. And while we were here broadcasting, Brother John Therese, he was out in the crowd talking to people, and we want to bring you just one of the interviews, one or two of them that we didn't get a chance to broadcast yesterday. Here are just some of the young people talking to Brother John.
Thank you, Colm. I'm here with some diehard pilgrims from South Carolina. We got some college students that have been on the road for a long time now. But what are your names?
Sophie Caston.
I'm Jordan Rowland.
Zach Middlebrooks.
And is this your first World Youth Day?
Yes, it is.
It will not be my last, but it is my first.
Yeah, it's my first too. Overall, what's the experience like for you?
Very exciting, but also overwhelming with so many people and so many countries.
I think it's crazy because you always hear about like all of the Catholic youth, but it's crazy to see it in person and how many people really love Jesus.
Absolutely. The numbers of seeing people with like-minded individuals that want to be closer to Christ. In the U.S., especially in the South, you're a little the minority being Catholic, but here it feels like everyone's one big family.
What's something you've learned, like maybe an expectation that you didn't kind of foresee, but that you've encountered? We'll start with you, Zach.
I would say something that I've encountered here is people love the U.S. Surprisingly, when we have our flag out, they all start cheering USA, and I thought we were going to be like, put that down, like don't show them that we're American, but it's been really very welcoming.
Yeah, the hospitality here in Lisbon has been so amazing. The people are so friendly and just welcoming.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, everyone is just so willing to speak to everybody and, like, make friendships and connections. So it's good to have people from, like, across the world to...
How well their English is. Like, when they talk and you try to talk to them, they're, like, actually very fluent when it comes to English.
Now, overall, your group, you're actually part of a very big group. How big is the group you're in?
57.
But you've been on the road for a while. What are some of the sights you've seen?
We've seen Fatima, we have seen Santiago de Compostela, we have seen Burgos, and Lourdes.
So y'all are world travelers, and you've managed to squeeze in Fatima, now the World Youth Day, which is a week-long event. Have you seen some of the sights here in Lisbon?
We've seen a bunch of churches, and we went to the zoo.
To the zoo? How about that?
It's been nice every day doing the Rise Up catechesis. We get to go to, like, different churches and look at all of the, like, the gold and the beautiful decorations, too.
Overall, how's the catechesis been, the whole Rise Up? I've heard a lot of good news about it.
It's been really good, honestly, just having everyone, like, kind of collective together in a smaller area. It's good to, like, bond with people. Like, we talked to people from New York today and for, like, 30 minutes, so it was really good.
Absolutely. Having a small group, be able to talk to somebody, especially knowing they speak English, helps. And then be able to build a bond because they choose really good topics and great speakers to talk about.
Has there been a favorite so far or somebody that's really impressed you?
Bishop Barron yesterday blew it, like, out the water. Like, it was awesome.
Awesome. Now, we've been 3 days in. We've got 3 days more. What are some of the expectations, or is there anything you're kind of looking forward to? We'll start with you.
The vigil, where we get to, like, camp out the night before.
Yeah. We haven't had an opportunity to go to the City of Joy yet, so I'm really excited for that and to look at all of, like, the different workshops and everything.
Stations of the Cross tomorrow is something I've been looking forward to all week.
That's powerful. And so I really thank you all for coming out here and bringing the group, sharing your faith and the witness, and keep us in your prayers, and we will definitely pray for you. And back to you.
Brother John Drez, thank you so much. Enjoying it. He's having a great time out there in the field. He recorded that yesterday during the welcoming ceremony with just some of the 500,000 young people from all over the world. And they were talking about halfway there, 3 days done, 3 days to go. And the last man said he was looking forward to the Way of the Cross, which will be happening this evening. Right behind us here.
Right.
What can we expect, Father?
Yeah, I don't know the details of the particular program, but at every World Youth Day, it's always very different usually, so you never know how they're going to express the Stations of the Cross, but it's usually compelling.
And normally before these big events, they will have, when the young people are gathering, a concert, which I think is what they're practicing for at the moment and rehearsing with the music behind us. Eleanor, do you remember the Way of the Cross last year, and if it was the last time you were at World Youth Day? And if it was a special moment?
Yeah, of course, I remember that event, and it was so emotional. So can't wait for tonight.
It's going to be wonderful. Well, you know what? We've been talking about all the young people here, 500,000, but it's interesting when the Pope was asked about World Youth Day before coming here. He said we have to remember World Youth Day is important for showing people that the church is not an old folks club. But he said, nor is it a youth club. It's a club for everybody. And it is true that most, 99% of the 500,000 pilgrims that have showed up for World Youth Day so far are young people. But Father and Eleonora, and you watching, there are people here who are young at heart. And one of them is a man who came here on his 75th birthday. He waited until he was 75 years old for his first World Youth Day. Isn't that special? And what makes it extra special is that person is my dad, Tom Flynn. He came here on his 75th birthday for his first World Youth Day, and on his birthday we put a camera on him very quickly, and I asked him what did he think of it.
I'm only 75 and someone's made a mistake somewhere. I feel like a youth.
What do you think so far, everything you've seen?
It's absolutely beautiful, and all the young people going around town singing. You wouldn't get it anywhere. It's lovely, and we're so privileged to be here.
Dad, finally, your message to all the young people, as someone who's here at their first World Youth Day at 75.
Well, a lot of people say there's no hope for the world, but what we saw today, there's great hope for the world. God bless us all.
Oh, hey. There he is, young at heart, and I can tell you that my dad, Tom Flynn, 75 years old here, his first World Youth Day. What do you think?
That's where you get the gift of the gab? Is that it?
That's where I get it. The problem is he still thinks he's 25, not 75.
Yeah.
My mum will attest to that as well.
Yeah.
But it's true that you do see some people here who are not young. They're young at heart,
Yeah.
and they're enjoying World Youth Day as well.
Right. It is, like you said, it gives you hope, and it's a beautiful thing just to see young people together, laughing and sharing things. And so how could it not stir? I think it stirs everybody.
It's great. Well, Eleonora, Father Mark, it's been great talking to you. We're going to take a break here for a while on EWTN in terms of our coverage of World Youth Day live from Lisbon. But join us again later on this evening here in beautiful Lisbon as we will bring you the Way of the Cross. It is going to be an absolutely spectacular, beautiful event with Pope Francis and with all the young people here in Eduardo Park. And don't forget, if you want to find out more details about the rest of our broadcasts, we'll go to our website, ewtn.com. It's on the screen there, /WYD. But until then, wherever you may be watching in the world, thank you very much and God bless.